Thanks for joining us for this edition of Sunderland Talks. I'm Mark Richardson. Today we're joined by Dr. Caroline Gibby, who's the head of the School of Law at the University of Sunderland, and she's also a qualified solicitor. So Caroline, hi.
Hi Mark, thanks for inviting me to come along and talk about some of the most important changes to legal education that's happened for some considerable time.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us. So Caroline, can you tell us, what is the Solicitor's Qualifying Exam?
That's a good question, Mark. I think a lot of people have been thinking long and hard about that. The SQE stands for the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination. It's a bit of a misnomer really, because there are two parts to it. The SQE1 is what students will be taking from autumn 2021, and that is an exam that focuses on two main things. Firstly, looking at something called functional legal knowledge. That means students are going to be assessed on things like business law, dispute resolution. They're also going to be asked to look at civil litigation, criminal litigation, property, all of these important things that solicitors have to be able to feel confident and comfortable with in terms of their legal knowledge. So there's that side of it, which is part of SQE1. And the second element of SQE1 is going to be about legal writing and how you communicate with clients. It's also really important skills that students are going to have to be able to show for when they go into their qualifying work experience. So that's the SQE1 bit. Sandwiched in between SQE2, the super exam, is a period of something called qualifying work experience.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later if that's okay. But SQE2 is the what we call the super exam, and that's going to be about all the skills that you've learned, all the practical legal skills that you've learned whilst working in a legal practice or working in-house or demonstrating that you're learning legal skills.
Okay, so why was it actually introduced?
That's a really good question. One of the main problems with the existing practice of learning how to qualify as a solicitor is the examination process, the legal practice course.
Right.
And incidentally, that will still be available for people to take up to about 2024. The problem with the legal practice course was that it was quite static, and the Solicitors Regulation Authority, or the SRA, were a bit worried about how the training and the process was actually being carried out in universities.
Yeah.
So what they decided to do was to look at a completely different way of assessing how good someone can be in preparing them to become a solicitor in practice. The introduction of the SQE is, for solicitors in particular, really important. But we also need to remember that there are quite a few budding barristers out there. So for them, the SQE doesn't quite have the same implications. The Bar Standards Board has set out its own requirements regarding how it carries out its training process. So if you want to become a barrister, the SQE isn't the thing that you're going to need to be concerned about. For a barrister, this training process is going to be exactly the same thing. You're going to need to do the bar training programme. You'll need to do the Bar Professional Training Programme, or the BPTC, and you're also going to need to go through a period of pupillage. So for you guys, if becoming a barrister is the way you want to go, the SQE isn't something you need to worry about.
Right. Wow. So when is all of this due to start?
It's due to come into play in autumn 2021.
Right, okay, yeah.
But what most universities are doing is trying to change their degree programmes to take into account the requirements of the SQE exam. Now this is actually where I think we at Sunderland are really probably one step ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Our degree programme has always had quite a healthy amount of vocational skills built into students' work. Right from the get-go, right from stage one, students learn about how to write legal letters, how to think about communicating with clients, and that goes all the way through our standard programme anyway. So for us, the changes are not going to be that dramatic, whereas I think for other law schools that haven't got such a vocational focus, it's going to be a bigger thing for them to think about.
Right, okay. So overall, how will it change the process for becoming a solicitor?
That's a really good question again, Mark, 'cause there's quite a lot of confusion going around. In terms of how you qualify as a solicitor, the traditional way is that you go and do a law degree, and then you do something called the legal practice course. Now, no longer are you going to be able to do the legal practice course, so what you'll do instead is to take SQE1, then do a period of qualifying work experience, and then SQE2. So the process is a bit different. If you're doing a law degree, the main difference that you'll notice is that you're going to need to do the SQE1 before you go into qualifying work experience.
Right. And would that apply to somebody that already has a law degree that would be considering doing this exam, perhaps?
If you're currently taking a law degree, then you don't really have to worry about the SQE and the changes. Just keep on doing what you're doing and then enrol on a legal practice course. Okay. But be mindful, the legal practice courses we anticipate will stop being provided around about 2024. It doesn't mean that you can't find one, but it will mean it'll be harder to find and probably to fund as well. So in that context, if you're doing a law degree now, you don't have to worry about it. If you enrol on a law degree from 2019 to 2020, you don't have to worry about it. The main changes are going to be if you enrol on a degree programme that starts in autumn 2020, because that's when SQE will come into play.
Right. So theoretically, could somebody without a law degree sit the exam?
Sit the SQE? Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the main changes and one of the reasons why the SRA decided to do what they wanted to do, because they wanted to open up the potential to become a solicitor much more quickly to people who are doing different sorts of degrees. Now, we think that's absolutely fantastic because it allows different people doing different programmes to bring a rich experience. Just to sort of backtrack on that, if I can.
Yeah, of course.
One of the things with qualifying as a solicitor is there are lots of different ways. And traditionally, yes, you could do a qualifying law degree and then go straight on to the law practice course. But what you could also do if you were doing, say, a history degree or a maths degree for that matter, you could do something called a graduate law diploma. And that's a year-long course where you do the foundations of legal knowledge, and then you'd go on to do your LPC. And the other thing, Mark, of course, is, sorry to just keep on talking about this bit, but there is also something called the Solicitor's Apprenticeship route, which has been around for 3 or 4 years now, and that's a different way again. But interestingly, if you're doing the apprenticeship model, you probably will have to do SQE. So just be mindful to check with your provider if that's going to be something you're doing, that they've got you going through the training process to make sure you can do the SQE.
Would that apply to anyone that was part of the way through the training process when SQE is introduced?
If you're already on an ongoing training process, i.e. you're in a training contract, you won't have to do anything else because you should have completed your LPC. If it's with an apprenticeship, I urge you to check with your apprenticeship provider to make sure that they can identify which programme you're on. And
do we know at this stage what it will cost?
I think that's one of the big problems that we've got. The Solicitors Regulation Authority has given us a ballpark figure, and they've split it up into 2 amounts, and they haven't really been consistent. So they've said for SQE1, which is a series of 3 exams, multi-choice questions, and a writing test over 2 half days, that's going to cost between £1,500 and £1,800. We should be able to get some additional information about funding anyway very soon. In terms of the super exam, again, we're not clear. We're looking at around about £2,500. So in terms of the fees that the students will have to find, it's going to be around about £4,500.
Right.
And that doesn't take into account the preparation courses. And we do think you're going to need the preparation courses because this is so different to anything else that you'll have ever come across.
Yeah. I mean, if someone already had qualifying legal experience, how would this feed into the SQE?
In terms of the qualifying experience, that's great. That will be credited by the Solicitors Regulatory Authority. Is this thing called qualifying work experience that I mentioned about before?
Yeah.
Is it okay for me to talk a little bit about that now as well?
Absolutely, yeah.
The qualifying work experience is designed to replace the traditional training contract. I'm not sure whether that actually will take place, but what the SRA has said is that as long as you get 4 periods of good quality training experience over a 2-year period, and the organisation that you get the information from is prepared to sign that off to say about the quality of the work that you've done, that will do. So for students like students at the University of Sunderland who've got the advantage of the student law clinic, it's great for them because they will be able to use their time that they've spent in the law clinic as part of that qualifying work experience. So that's really useful. And of course, any universities that offer a student law clinic may also be able to provide that too.
Excellent. Well, great. Thanks, Caroline. So a lot of major changes ahead then.
Yeah, lots of thinking going on, and I think it's really important to recognise that universities are going to take different approaches to this. So for anybody that's thinking about a law degree, it's really important to come along to the open days, the application days, just to find out more about the thinking that's going on from that particular law school. As I said before, I think we're really lucky here. They're a bit ahead of the game anyway, so the changes that we have to make are not going to be so significant.
Excellent. Thanks again to our listeners. Be sure to check out our latest law content. You can find it at sunderland.ac.uk and search law. So, bye for now.